I wanted to check in with you since it's sort of the end of the year, and this is when people do this, about some things that many of you have participated with me in, let's say, magnifying messages. I think that's what we do best here on Twitter, is that we can magnify messages that are good and debate things that are wrong, and maybe that helps in the long run. But here are some topics that I believe that that you collectively and I made some difference. Now, that doesn't mean we're the leaders in any of it, but we were participants in boosting certain messages all year. Here are some of them. One of the messages I think we successfully boosted this year was the idea of decoupling with China, but strategically. In other words, don't just walk away. Do what you can do. We got business, ongoing business. You might have to wind them down in a very long-term situation, but don't bring any new business over there. That would just be crazy. I think that idea, promoted primarily by people like Gordon Chang and Kyle Bass and some others, and I've definitely joined that message as well. And I feel, would you agree that the decoupling idea is far more prevalent, at least as an option, in people's minds than it was a year ago? Now, the Hong Kong stuff makes a difference. The Uyghur stuff makes a difference. The organ transplant stuff makes a difference. The trade deal makes a difference. But yeah, I'm seeing some yeses go by. I believe that we succeeded collectively, because it doesn't make, if I tweet something, it has no power whatsoever unless there are hundreds of thousands of you looking at it and saying, yes, I amplify that message. So there's nothing I can do on my own. I can only tweet, and you can decide to retweet. And I think the China message, I think, changed the world. Honestly, I don't think that's too strong a statement. I think that collectively, we're part of. We're not the reason that anything changed, but we're part of this growing influential message that the direction we need to go with China is a strategic, managed decoupling over time. And that seems to be now drifting into I would say that's drifting into common sense, where before it was, think how radical that was even a year ago. Think what it would have sounded like to say we should decouple with China 1 year ago, because some of us were. And now think about how it sounds today. It doesn't sound bad, does it? Because we saw that the trade war didn't really hurt the economy. At least it didn't drive it down. Maybe it could have been higher if things had been different. Here's another one. As you know, with Mark Schneider and Michael Schellenberger and others, we've been helping boost the idea that clean, safe nuclear energy has to be a big part of the coming whatever. Whether you believe in climate change or you don't, it ends up being the same. I feel as though, and this one would be a little harder, this might be confirmation bias on my part, I don't know, but I feel as though the national mood about nuclear energy is really different in the past year. But I don't know if that's just my little corner of the world. But it seems that, now that some of the Democrat candidates have come out and said full-throatedly, yes, nuclear has to be part of the solution, and you see the Perry Energy Department saying, yes, we're building test facilities for fuel, we're very aggressive in this. And you see other countries, and you see Bill Gates trying to get his Generation 4 up, etc. I feel as though this is another category where we collectively actually made a difference. Can I get your opinion on that? This one's harder to judge, right? I think a little harder to judge. But it feels as if in the past year, we went from some kind of full-on panic, 12 years we're all going to die, to drifting toward the opinion that between the new technologies for scrubbing CO2 and the limitation of our ability to be able to predict things, our strong economy, and the fact that nuclear energy is very promising. At the same time, the solar and batteries and wind are getting more efficient. I feel as if all the smart people are on the same page now, or it's getting that way. Now, that the world is still afraid of nuclear, the population in general, but I feel as though the decision-making public has all drifted in the same direction. So that doesn't mean we get something fast, but at least the minds are in the right place. One of the things that I wanted for 2019 is for the president to declare the Mexican cartels terrorist organizations. I understand. I watched a clip in which Brandon Darby was talking about this. He's an expert on the border and the cartels and works for Breitbart. I've had him on this podcast before, on this Periscope. And he's probably the most, as far as I can tell, the most knowledgeable person about what's actually happening on the ground. And he said something interesting I hadn't heard before, which is that it might make sense to designate a few of the cartels, the Mexican cartels, as terrorist organizations, but not all of them. Now, I didn't hear the thinking behind that. And I don't know exactly how that could make sense, but because it comes from somebody I know to be sensible, I'm going to say there's something in my knowledge that there's a gap I need to have filled in. So there is some thinking that I can't validate as being agreeable with me yet, but I imagine it probably is that you wouldn't do it to all of them. Now, the president has been talking about it. It's on the table. So I would say that is yet again another situation, certainly with the fentanyl situation. Wouldn't you say that we've been part of productively persuading toward getting tougher with the cartels? I think so. I think we can pat ourselves on the back for being part of the public voices that are in favor of that.